I'm going to use this video to explain the structure that is given to you when you're given a project to complete in the Pearson T-Level. And it's about the menu system. And the menu system has a common theme to it in the way in which it's laid out, and the sections that are going to be included in the menus that you are asked to develop and improve and extend and so forth. So this video is going to help you to understand how this menu is structured and how the blocks that are used within the program that's running will contribute to the overall application. So the program is open in PyCharm. We'll be using PyCharm for our programs which are developed as a whole application, and we'll use Jupyter where we're trying to teach different things about different parts of the coding that we need to know. So here it is, and you'll see that in lines 1 to 10, this is how you make blocks of comments, and that's very useful. And it's very good for us explaining to the examiner what we're thinking about as we go through the processes we're going to complete. We then move on to lines 12 and 13. So instead of a block comment on line 12, I've got a single comment. And that also is very useful where you're trying to introduce a particular instruction to see what it's going to do. And in line 13, we print out a message to the user saying welcome. And that's a very common thing that you'll see in the application structures that we get. If we move on for the code between line 16 and line 36, so 20 lines of code, we've got a function. You know it's a function because you can see def, and then the indentation with the name of the function, the signature, parentheses, there are no parameters passed, and then a colon to say here comes the body of the function that you're going to see. So there are lots of print statements in here which are showing the options that the user has where they can continue to do calculation of addition, subtraction, multiplication and division, and a new comment on line 20 saying enter your choice. You should give your user clear instructions on what they are supposed to do. So then after we've issued them the things they can do in up to line 27 there, we then say we get the answer back of what they've chosen. Now you can see we've got a choice and we're going to convert it to an int because in the input it's always a string. So we return that choice, but we're also going to do some value checking in case they don't give us a valid number, which is an integer. So we get an error being produced for that, which will allow them to try again in the while loop. So we've set up the main menu, and now we're going to deal with the 4 functions that are needed in order to carry out the 4 arithmetic operations that we want to carry out: addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. And you'll see them here between line 39 and line 54. Very simple functions. We've done them before, lots of different ways, so you can see what they're doing. So they've been set up and they're ready to use, but they're not being used yet. I follow along from after that with from line 56, got another block comment. And then I'm going to just bring the code up so that you can see it more clearly. And here's the menu implementation. This is what's happening to make the program work. So we've got a while true. And that allows us to repeat the operation until the user says, I don't want to do any more. And if you may remember from the menu, it said 99 means I want to leave this process now. And I want to just stop the program. So the first thing we do is gather the first number and the second number, and note we've got meaningful names for the variables using the snake case. So first number and second number makes perfect sense, and you know that the arithmetic operations that we're going to get are going to need 2 numbers each, and that's going to be important as we move forward. So we're converting them to floats because we want the user to be able to enter a decimal point, and that's important that we get the right type of value from the user for that. Now notice, there are no error traps here, and that would be a really good extension task, and we'll show you that when it gets to it. I included another variable which is called operation, and that's going to hold a string, so I've set it up in line 75 just to be the empty string for the moment, so that we can have it ready to use when we get to that point in the code. All right, so I then check what the user's choice is. Now I get that from line 76, x equals main menu. That will display the main menu and get the choice that the user has elected to use, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 99. So I'm then using if statements and elif statements from 78 onwards, or 79 onwards I suppose is the first code. So I'm going to use if the x equals 1, print a line on line 88, line 80, that's just a spacer line. Operation is addition, so that's now populated that variable declared on 73 with the word addition, and you'll see that again in the code underneath where we get subtraction, multiplication and division. Result equals addition, first number, second number, that makes sense, and then print the result using f strings to let the user say that what they've done with the two numbers equals this. And it's the same for elif 2, 3 and 4. We just carry out the different operations. And then we go to else, and if they don't give us the number that we want, we've got an invalid choice, try again. And that's good practice for this particular type of operation. So let's see the application running. So as you know, in PyCharm, the action all happens in the terminal down here. And if I start the application, the first thing that happens is that welcome to the calculator message is shown, and then what's your first number? And I'm going to do 35.9, and then 76.3. And let's add those together. And we get the answer. Now that's really interesting, isn't it? It says something, we'll discuss this later in the classes. You don't get exactly what you should get, which should be 112.2. This is a rounding error caused by the size of the registers on the PC that you're running on, but we'll talk about that later on. So I'm going to ask for new numbers again. So I'm going to do 25, and I'm going to do 36. I'm going to multiply those together. And we'll get 900, which is the correct answer for that. So 25 again, and now I'm going to just exit the program and do that. So it exits gracefully, shuts down as we would expect, and we get the exit code 0, which is the one you want to see. No errors found. So that's the application. Now hopefully you're in a better position now to understand how this works and what blocks of code we're putting in here. We set up a welcome message, then we set up our functions, then we set up an operation to run the menu, and we get the choice and carry out the work. It's done by the functions. So I hope that makes sense.